Should men be allowed to get abortions?
Yeah, if you want to, I suppose. I don't believe in God, so I'm a big science person.
I believe in the Big Bang Theory.
Greetings to the widest audience in the country. This is Real Science Radio. I'm Fred Williams.
And I'm Doug McBurney, Bible student, science geek, amateur comedian. It's great to be with you, Fred, to talk about real science, not only on Friday, but here at the Texas Homeschool Convention in Fort Worth.
That's right. It's our first homeschool convention.
Yeah.
You and me. Bob used to do it in Colorado. So, yep, we're at the Texas 2024 Homeschool Convention. We've had some really great interviews and looking forward to getting to those.
Yeah.
They have an art show going on in Fort Worth, Texas. So we got to go out into the world.
Yeah, we went out in the world.
We asked 5 questions. And we asked those 5 questions to a lot of people at the art show. And then we asked those same 5 questions to people here at the conference.
Yeah.
The homeschool conference. Now, Doug, do you think the answers would be different or the same?
So out in the world, they would be very different. Yes.
Some interesting interactions. We debated an atheist.
That
was pretty interesting.
But I will say one thing about Texas, is they had a lot fewer freaks than they have in Colorado at your average art festival.
That is very true.
Right?
Yeah.
I expected more freaks. We ended up seeing more conservatives. So that was kind of encouraging for Texas. You know, chalk one up for Texas.
Yeah, that's right. So you'll get to see a lot of these interactions. And again, I'd say roughly half were Christians. At the art, when you say at the art show, about half. But the other half, real interesting comments. We had some real biting questions. It's interesting how they'll claim that they believe in science. And it's
science!
And we'll find out how much they really believe in science when we get into some of those interviews. And then it was so awesome to interview people here and get the perspective from people who have been homeschooled and haven't been brainwashed with what happens in the public schools.
Yeah, and in the booths at this homeschool show, there's 2nd and 3rd generation homeschool kids. And I mean, they're impressive. They're going to get a lot done. They're going to help the Lord. If America can be saved, they're going to help America save. They're going to help the Lord save America.
Yeah.
Because there are some impressive young people here. Praise the Lord.
Yes. So if you need to homeschool your kids, if you're listening to this and you got school-age children, and if, worst case, if you send them to a Christian school, make sure that Christian school holds to a biblical authority of creation, because if they don't start with a good foundation, they're much more likely to believe other liberal doctrine.
Yep.
So I had a guy come by just before we shot this, Doug, and he asked, well, were you homeschooled? I had to embarrassingly say no.
I know. No, I'm disabled.
Yeah. For 30 years, I believed what the world had taught me. It took me 30 years to realize I was brainwashed. I was actually kind of angry, not with my teachers or anything. I was angry at myself for letting myself be brainwashed and not look into all this other evidence. So there's so much evidence out there that people don't know about, but that's why we do Real Science Radio.
Amen.
Why we have a podcast. And that's why we come to places like this, and we were blessed to have an art show going on at the same time. What an opportunity to talk to the world and do another man on the street interview.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah,
good stuff. It's this is inspirational, and for those of you who did go to public school like me, you'll never feel as dumb as hanging out with a bunch of homeschool people. But it's inspirational, and it will make you smarter. All right, Fred, let's get to the content that we gathered at the show.
That's right. We're going to hear from homeschoolers and from the world, from the art festival that was happening in downtown Fort Worth. So tune in and enjoy.
So question number 1, what scares you the most about artificial intelligence?
I'm not really, nothing.
Nothing scares you?
No.
All right.
Okay.
I like that. All right. Question number 2, should men be allowed to get abortions?
If they're pregnant.
Okay. Number 3, how long ago did the dinosaurs die?
I have no idea.
Number 4, 3 choices. It's a multiple choice question. The Big Bang, God, or aliens?
All 3.
All 3.
Finally.
People believe in all 3,
People believe in all 3.
Oh, yeah.
Final question. Do you think anyone can prove that God exists?
I don't know if they have yet. I don't know.
Do you think there's anything that could convince you?
Yeah, I'm convinced. I'm just saying it for other in general. I don't know if there's any proof.
Really? All right. How about the fact that you and I are able to carry on an intelligent conversation with meaning and purpose?
Sure. That is, yes, but it's still, if you would scientifically say it's proof, I don't know. For some people it's proof. For me it is.
For you, that's enough?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Here we go. So,
film too.
Film
Is that
and
okay?
audio.
yeah, if you don't want to be on film, we can blur you guys out. If you
What
want.
if we're in witness protection?
Oh,
We would have said no.
you got me for a second.
Yeah.
Alrighty here. So, question number 1: what scares you most about artificial intelligence?
We won't know what's real and
All
what's fake.
Yeah. Yeah, the lines are blurred between real and imagined.
All right. Question number 2: should men be allowed to get abortions?
Not possible.
Men can't get abortions.
Okay, there you go. Question number 3: how long ago did the dinosaurs die out?
In the flood.
There, in the flood. I like that answer.
Yeah, so let's see, 2,000, 5,000, 6, 7, 8,000 years ago.
All right, you guys are solid. I was going around and asking people, and some people say billions of years old, and I would tell them, well, they found dinosaur soft tissue in fossils. They can't last billions of years old.
Right.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so then my next question was Big Bang God or the aliens?
Oh, definitely God.
Yeah.
Definitely God.
Everything was spoken.
Kind of knew where that was, where you guys are going to answer that.
Yeah. All
You
right.
already said he spoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all spoken into existence.
Amen. Very good
absolutely.
answer. All right. And then, do you think anyone can prove God exists?
Yes, but I can't do it right this minute. If you look at
If you
the
look at
things around
creation,
you,
yeah.
If you look
Exactly.
at the Fibonacci sequence,
You look at our DNA sequence. Yeah.
yeah.
I think all the evidence is there. You just got to be able to see it.
Yeah. Well, the Bible says the invisible attributes of God are clearly seen. So, He put His thumbprint in all of His creation. You just got to look for it.
That's right.
And it's actually right in front of your face, right?
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for your questions. We're with Real Science Radio, based in Denver. We talk science and the Bible, creation, and we refute things like evolution and stuff. So if you guys like science, check us out at rsr.org or on YouTube. Real Science Radio on YouTube.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What scares you most about artificial intelligence?
That it could take us over.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2: should men be allowed to get abortions?
Yeah, if you want to, I suppose.
Can men get pregnant?
No, they can't.
How do they have abortions then?
It depends on what you identify as.
All right. Well, I could say that men are getting abortions for their girlfriends and wives or whatever. So in a sense, they already are getting abortions.
Sure.
All right. Question number 3: how long ago did the dinosaurs die out?
Millions of years ago.
Millions of years ago?
I don't know how many millions. Millions.
All right. Well, did you know that scientists have found soft tissue in dinosaurs, like blood cells and DNA and stuff, that could only last a few thousand years? Would that change your mind?
Fossilized bones.
In fossilized bones, yeah. Would that?
Unfossilized.
I don't know enough about dinosaurs to. I
Okay.
don't care about dinosaurs. Okay.
Okay.
Everybody loves dinosaurs.
I haven't even seen all the Jurassic Parks. I don't care about dinosaurs.
Okay. Question number 4: multiple choice: Big Bang God or the aliens?
Big Bang.
Big Bang. All right. Well, did you know that the James Webb Telescope has been refuting the Big Bang? Evidence for the Big Bang. It's proving that it can't happen.
I'd be interested to see your sources on that.
All right. Yeah. Well, we do a radio show in Denver, Real Science Radio. We talk a lot about this, so you
Okay.
can check us out on YouTube or rsr.org. We have
Okay.
all our sources. Got a lot of cool videos and stuff.
'Cause I don't believe in God, so I'm a big science person. I believe that
Okay.
the Big Bang Theory, but also with theories, the thing about a theory is we don't know, right? We haven't said we know for a fact that the Big Bang Theory had, when in a lot of places the biblical portion of it is, oh, we know for sure it's God. So, that's what I fight against. That's why it's a little different,
Sure.
but I'm not a religious person by any means. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at Real Science Radio, we believe God created the Earth in 6 days, about 6,000 years ago, and we believe that science actually backs up the claims of the Bible. So if you want to check that out, go to rsr.org.
Okay.
Do you believe God can be proven?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't. But I also don't believe in God. So
Okay. Well, what about a building? Who makes a building? Every building has a builder.
people, first you start with an architect, and then you start with a building planner who orders all the pieces,
All right.
And then it gets put together by people in different trades to create what it gets created into today.
Yeah.
But then before that, it gets mined, by miners and then made into individual minerals and things like that.
All right.
If the Big Bang Theory is correct, all of the minerals that are on Earth today are all originally stardust. It started off from a larger expansion. We found the deposits of those, found those individual things, turned them into metals. Now we made buildings.
All right, very cool. So where did all that come from, though? What banged?
That's a very good question. That's why it's a theory.
So you talked about like a building. It's very structured. Would you say that the human body is very structured?
Yes.
Has a lot of design.
Yes.
Do you think that could have just evolved by chance?
I wouldn't say by chance, but it definitely evolved based off of what our needs were over time.
So it's being organized. It's being directed, you'd say.
I wouldn't say being directed. Different people get put into different situations. So over time, different things have evolved different than other things, right? You look at a cow that's from the United States versus a cow that's from, say, Europe. They have different types of grass or more availability. They grow bigger or smaller. Same thing with humans.
Yeah, so we've adapted. So in order to adapt, though, you need to take in that information and process that information. By what mechanism does that happen?
I guess, what do you mean? What do you mean, like how?
Well,
what mechanism?
How is it that we can process information and come up with solutions?
We don't
How does
process
that work?
information. It's survival of the fittest from the earliest standard. Now we haven't existed in a conscious state long enough to really see a whole lot of evolution within our current body form, except we've gotten taller and bigger based off of the nutrients that we've eaten on a regular basis. But if you look at different things that have taken period over longer periods of time, people more towards the equator and whatnot have darker skin, so they absorb less sun.
Right.
We, myself being very pale, my whole family is, goes back all up north, all different Norwegian, German, all that. We're very up north, less sun, less rays. I'm white. That's what it is. So, it has nothing so much to do with a direction you're being pushed. It has to do with where you're at that very moment, the scientific, chemistry that hits your body. And that goes for all organisms. Survival of the fittest, just wherever you end up, that's how you evolve.
Okay, yeah. So in the case of like dark skin, so we produce melanin to protect ourselves from the sun.
Yes.
So there's a reason for that. How does our bodies know that we need protection from the sun? Where does it start? Like what told the body, okay, you need to make melanin? How does that start?
That's a very good question. That's why it's a theory.
Okay.
Yes, well, thanks a lot for answering these.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so, our position is, I'm a software engineer, and the DNA is information, right?
Sure.
It's like it is a code. It's absolutely a code, and you can't have a code without a designer. So evolutionists have been really struggling with that, among many other things. They can't explain how that would happen. You've got not only, and I don't know if you knew this, do you know that the DNA is now, they realize it can be read backwards, and it does a totally different function? So imagine reading a book that tells a story one direction, you read it the other direction, it tells another story.
Yeah.
So our point is you can prove God because every building has a builder, right? And you admitted that. So you look at the human body, which is far more complex. And now we're looking at the DNA, and the evolutionists can no longer explain those things.
Now, we didn't start this way. It has been proven through carbon dating that we started off as single cells. Everyone
carbon
started
dating,
off as single cells.
Yeah, so actually carbon dating only goes back about 40,000 years because carbon turns into nitrogen. It has a half-life of about 5,600 years. The problem is, for example, in diamonds, you find carbon, the thing you just talked about, carbon-14. Carbon only lasts 40,000 years. It's radioactive. Yet diamonds are supposed to be millions, if not billions of years old, and yet we're finding carbon in them. And so radioactive decay isn't a reliable mechanism to date things because if something
a lot of things are made of carbon, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and diamonds are just pressurized carbon over years and years and years and years, except for lab-created diamonds where we create that in a lab environment.
Yeah, and again, thanks for answering these, but they've got, there's different types of carbon, right? There's carbon-12,
Sure.
and then the radioactive carbon is carbon-14 when you get some electrons spun off.
Sure.
That decays, that becomes radioactive. It's a clock, it's like an hourglass, it's ticking down, and eventually that carbon-14 is going to all turn into nitrogen after about, the max you can have a carbon atom left is maybe 100,000. That's, you won't detect it in a carbon chamber detection. So why are you finding carbon-14 in diamonds, in coal, natural gas? You can't blame it on contamination because no matter what you do, you find carbon.
Okay, I don't know enough about carbon to answer that question, but I'll bet if we found a carbon expert, they'd have a great answer for you.
They don't, because trust me, we've been doing this for years. They try to blame it on contamination because they're aware of the fact that carbon can't last that long. So they can't explain why it's in oil, why it's in diamonds. We say it's in there because there was a global flood about 4,000 years ago that buried a ton of carbon on the earth. And so part of that carbon's radioactive and it decays like a clock. And that's why you can find carbon-14 in diamonds, gas, oil, lots of stuff. Dinosaur bones have carbon-14. On our science show, we offered the guy for Jurassic Park, I'm drawing a blank on his name. We offered him $12,000 if he'd date a dinosaur bone, and he wouldn't do it because he knew they'd find carbon in it. And that dinosaur bone wouldn't be thousands of years, or wouldn't be millions of years old, it'd be thousands of years old.
I don't know enough about carbon.
Yeah,
I just have to
okay.
accept whatever you say.
Again,
I don't have a rebuttal.
Yeah.
Do you believe Jesus Christ was a historical figure?
I believe that he was a prophet in his religion, very similar to how we had a lot of cult leaders in the 70s and 80s, but a version back then. This period of time that's so substantial to us is not substantial at all if you look at our celestial bodies. So, no.
You're substantial?
No. I'm an ant. I am but an ant.
Do you believe you're a sinner?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you look in your book as to what is a sinner, I'm definitely a sinner.
Okay.
But I also have a great time, and I want to emphasize that into the camera.
So what if Jesus said that he could pay for your sins and all you have to do is believe? Didn't say anything about your great time.
I would ask him what the payment plan is.
He already paid it.
He died on a cross. It seems like a small fee for everyone else.
But what if the man who died on that cross was of infinite value?
There's not enough substantial proof for me to believe
You're
that.
just an ant.
I am just an ant,
So
but this ant does not believe that.
Well, just think about it.
I've thought about it a lot. I actually grew up Catholic. They do a very good brainwashing on all of us. I'm not part of it.
So yeah, I'm not talking about Catholicism. I'm talking about what Jesus said he did for you. As an ant,
Every religion has a different idea of what Jesus said he'd do for you. So, how do I know that you're telling the truth versus a Buddhist monk or versus,
that's for you to judge.
I know, and there's so many options. How do you believe any of them?
So what if he said he paid everything and you don't have to do anything but believe?
If that were true, I would exist in that portion of life. But I don't know that that's true. The only person that's telling me that is you and other people within your religion.
Well, Jesus said it, and so it is true.
We have it written down, but that's also been translated, like 3 or 4 times on a giant scale?
Actually not. The Bible translations...
What was the Bible's initial language?
Well, the Bible's initial language would have been, Hebrew, right?
And who translated that into English?
Well, the most recent, going back into the English, starting about 500 years ago, we started translating directly from the Hebrew into English.
Now, they have translated the two in modern day and found that there are large differences that they had to make because there's a lot of Hebrew words that don't exist in English. So we've had to change some stuff up. Because you're talking about the King Charles Bible, King James Bible. King James Bible was
Charles
put
might
in
have had
place.
one, but...
Definitely to fit his situation. Yeah, no, I mean, there's too many options for me to pick one.
So,
right,
but the
Christianity is not even the largest religion. So how do I know it's true?
But the Dead Sea Scrolls actually proved that the Bible was translated correctly. In other words, it wasn't a translation upon a translation upon a translation. You can take all.
Do we have those scrolls in their entirety?
We don't.
We don't.
Then how do we know?
Because you've almost got the entire book of Isaiah. So you've had these. What are the odds that it gets all of these right, but it must somehow maybe be wrong on the other ones? All the ones that they have were right. So that is overwhelming evidence because statistically you can't. It's like
none of that feels like overwhelming. Not enough for me to believe personally. That probably works for some people. That doesn't work for me.
Okay.
History.
Because there's a lot of translations of other books too, like the Quran. How do I know that Judaism isn't correct versus?
Well, you
Christianity?
mean Islam. Because there is a lot of flaws in there there are various like telephone game where you tell this one story and another one. There's inconsistencies.
But how do we know which one's true, right? It's a lot like being in the Spider-Verse, right? There's a lot of different types of Spider-Man.
But
which one came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, but in just investigation by itself, so you can reform almost the entire New Testament by church fathers, church leaders amongst themselves at the time of Christ or not that long after. You can actually reform most of the New Testament. You can't do that with the Quran. You cannot do that with Homer's Iliad, which is the second most written book in the world.
Shakespeare. We don't have any of the manuscripts.
Many of Shakespeare's things are
Shakespeare
corrupted.
was real?
I believe that he existed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you believe what we have are accurate representations of what he wrote?
Probably not, considering how long ago it was. I
Yeah.
believe that anything given enough time is translated
Yeah.
poorly, including but not limited to the Bible.
Okay.
So-
do you believe as an ant that you will be held accountable for your sins?
No, I believe that I will die and my body will be composted up naturally through the earth, and I will be used to create something else hundreds and hundreds of years in the future.
So annihilation, basically. You just
Oh,
cease
yeah.
to exist.
Yes.
Okay, what if you're wrong about that?
If I'm wrong about that, then we'll see. But I have no issues or quarrels with the fact that when I die, nothing happens.
So if you do have to stand before God, you're not going to protest at all when he says,
Oh, I'll say something along the lines of, I guess I was wrong.
if you want to know what's true, Jesus will show you.
We'll find out. Hopefully it's Jesus.
All right.
Yeah, well.
Appreciate
Yeah.
you.
God bless, man.
Thank you so much for your time.
Very
Yeah,
much.
thanks for
Appreciate it.
taking the
Have
time.
a good day. I appreciate
you
you.
too.
You too. All right, so we're back at the homeschool conference, and we're here with Mr. Larry with the Apologia over here, and we wanted to ask him the same questions as we did out on the street. So question number one,
You or him?
whichever you want, either
Oh,
way.
okay.
All righty. So question number one, what scares you most about artificial intelligence?
What is artificial intelligence?
That's a good question.
Well, the same as what everybody is that it will take over and there'll be no more jobs for us.
Okay. All
But
righty.
we could start at the college level and get rid of all of the college students first and replace them with AI.
That's a great idea.
What do you think?
I'm going to go no.
Okay, second question. Should men be allowed to get abortions?
I love it. The question is so great. I want to see all the answers of the other people. I would have to say, what is a man?
Ooh, he's asking big questions here. All righty, here we go. Third question. How long ago did the dinosaurs die out?
I've seen some recently. I've got lizards running all over my house. I've seen some alligators, and all of those are dinosaurs. So if you're talking about previous dinosaurs,
Yeah, like the T-Rex or the Triceratops.
we have, this is unfair asking me this,
I know.
we have dinosaur sightings and stories all the way up into the last 20 years. And every society has drawings, writings, statements about dinosaurs that lived with man, even up into the recent times.
That's a good answer. Yeah, and this is where we tell people, well, you know, the scientists have found soft tissue in unfossilized dinosaur bones, and that.
And the lady who first discovered it is embarrassed because she's still an evolutionist and still doesn't believe in the Noahic flood.
Yeah, well, that got some good reactions.
And she's a Christian.
Yeah, and she's a
She's
Christian.
been fooled by the,
Oh, is she?
She
I
is
didn't
a
know that
professing
part.
Christian, and I know people who know her.
Oh,
and
now
she
I'm
is a
more
believer in
embarrassed
Jesus
for her.
Christ.
I know. Yeah, hopefully she'll come around.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Big Bang, God, or the aliens?
I would rather choose God, but second aliens, third the worst theory ever, and that's evolution. So if I had to rank them, aliens is much more intelligent than the theory of evolution.
I agree.
Yeah.
You could argue that God is an alien. He's not from Earth.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about the illegal aliens coming.
That's right. That's what we were joking. Like, we should ask. And if someone says aliens, we'd be like, legal or illegal?
Yeah. Well,
Alrighty. And then,
was an alien.
there you go. All right, final question. Do you think anyone can prove that God exists?
Yes.
How?
How much time do you have?
What's your best short answer?
My favorite is I use the argument from the moral law, and simply because there's others, the cosmological column argument, but my favorite is the moral law because that's what I debate atheists with, and I find out after talking to a few minutes how good they are because they talk about it. I don't murder people. I'm a good guy, and so I go, in the last 5 minutes you've said good, best, better. How do you know? How do you know what's good and best? And he goes, oh, well, I got the answer to that. And I said, okay. How? He said, it's societal evolution. We learn over periods of time how to improve and get better. And I go, well, how do you know you're improving and getting better?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Unless you're comparing it to something. So you say you're getting better as compared to what? And so in one instance, I was talking to a guy at a March for Life, and I was going through this with him. And I said, so how do you know you're getting better? And he goes, well, it's better to not kill somebody in a society than to murder them. And I go, why? What informs you of that? Well, somebody doesn't want to die. So yeah, but it could be the better thing.
Yeah.
And he said, there's other things. I mean, there's murder and lots of other things that, we don't want to really say out loud with people around that we don't want to do. And I go, well, maybe those are higher. Where are you getting your system of morality?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm not sure, because we could do an infinite regress backwards if we keep following it, and it has to get to a point of comparison. How do I know that this pin is straight?
Yeah.
Because I'm comparing it to what I know to be straight. And the reason that you can have a moral standard, and you seem to be a good guy, not you, you seem to be a good guy, is because God has planted that on your heart. And automatically, even though you'll violate it, I violate it sometimes too, that there is a God because he's planted this moral standard on your heart. You and I are standing here talking about it, and you keep comparing to something beyond us. It's better, it's best. As soon as you say better, best, good, or ought, and I said, for example, should you be a thief or not? Well, you shouldn't. I said, well, that's is ought. You're saying it ought to be this way, but it's not that way.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's false. If you say anything ought to be a certain way, then you're in trouble, because you just proved that a God exists. And then my second one is the problem of evil.
Oh, yeah, that one.
The problem of evil, that's where I go to secondly, because if God exists, how can there be so much evil? Well, how much time do you have for that one?
Yeah, all right, well, good.
We call it theodicy.
Theodicy.
Yeah, the problem of evil.
All right. Well, thank you for answering the questions, and it's always good to get another tactic to answer
thanks,
people.
Larry.
I like talking. Let's see. Okay, one last question. Is it a crime to put pineapple on pizza?
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm in the minority. He agrees with me.
I like pineapple on pizza.
We had that one atheist too that we kind of got in a longer conversation with him, remember? And he talked about things like, well, stardust. We all came from stardust.
Right.
And, we don't have time to answer all these. We can get into a long, hours-long debate.
Yeah, right.
But one of the things with that I wish I had the opportunity to ask him if I had a more protracted debate is, hey, dude, if we came from stardust, if you think about like all the radioactive elements on Earth,
right,
why are they pretty much all on the continental crust?
Right, wouldn't that stardust would have dropped it all around?
Yeah,
right?
you would just think there would be even distribution on the oceans, but not just the continental crust. Now, Walt Brown's hydroplate theory explains why you expect radioactivity, radioactive elements on the continental crust. Mm-hmm. He also got into he was getting into the whole gets translated on translation, all those are such tired arguments.
Hey, you know what? If I'd have been on my game, I would have given him my pat question for everyone who questions the translations of the Bible. I have a question for them.
And what's that?
I always say, recite for me the first sentence in the Bible. And so I've been doing that for 20 years. To date, no atheist making fun of the Bible has ever been able to quote me the first line of the Bible.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one. Yep.
So I wish I'd have been, well, you just can't do everything, right?
Yeah. And also, Doug, we had a couple people we interviewed that weren't part of this 5-question thing, and one of them was our booth partner, or not booth partner, but our neighbor, our booth
Reese,
neighbor.
who answered my question on the moon.
Yeah,
a lifesaver.
Exactly.
Oh,
so
his name has to go into the RSR archives for all of history for protecting me from the potential embarrassing situation of not understanding what makes the shadow on the moon. Yep. Thank you, Lord, for sending Reese.
Yes, and so we'll play that clip of Reese right now.
Hi, I'm Doug McBurney with Real Science Radio. I'm here at the Texas Homeschool Association Convention 2024, and I'm joined today by Reese Tabor with Southwest Baptist University, and I want to relate a story. Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Reese. I work for the Office of Missions at SBU. It's in Southwest Missouri. We're hanging out at this homeschool conference, and I just happen to be next door to these couple really fun guys. So
that's right. And so I was telling Reese a story I was sitting on the back deck with a friend of mine, a Christian friend of mine, who's a flat earther. And my flat earther friend looked up at the moon. We looked up at the moon. There was a crescent moon. And he said, hey, what makes the shadow on the moon? And I was stumped. And I had to think about it for a second. And I said, I think it maybe the earth. And he said, how can that be? He said, the sun is right there. And we were watching the sunset. And so there's the sun and there's the moon and there's the shadow. And I said, you know what? I got to think about that for a minute. And I thought about it and I came up with the best answer I could on the spot. But it turns out I was incorrect. And so I want to play the part of my flat earth friend. And I'm going to ask Reese, as we're sitting out on the back deck at sunset, I'm going to say, Reese, what makes the shadow on the moon?
So the shadow on the moon is the shadow of itself. So if you think about it, it's in its own shadow that we see it. So if you have an object, so think of the roundness of this microphone, and there's a light source coming from this side. It's just the light sources only come from here. It's only illuminating half of this specific sphere. So if you can do this experiment at home, you can go into a dark room, you can get like a basketball, volleyball, whatever kind of ball you want. You get two balls, one big, one small, that can be the Earth and the moon, and then you get a light source, a single light source, and you look, and it only illuminates the half of the hemisphere that is pointed towards the light source. So we can be here on the Earth, and the moon can be next to us, and the sun is 93 million miles away. So the angle of difference between the Earth and the moon is infinitesimally small at that point. So there's a very, very small angle. So it looks like we're on the exact same plane. But you can be sitting here or sitting on the back deck of your house, looking up at the moon. And if the moon is illuminated completely on the front here, and you're sitting right here watching the sunset, you're looking at the moon and you're only seeing the half that's illuminated. And so as the sun, or as the Earth and the moon rotate around each other, if the camera is the light source, as it gets in opposition, it's going to look fully illuminated. But if the moon gets all the way around here, we're seeing that essentially the sun is exactly behind the moon, so nothing's going to be illuminated. But you can take a high power telescope or digital camera, and if you find the moon, you can still expose for it and see the moon, but it's dark. The only time the Earth's shadow goes across the moon is during a lunar eclipse. So that's when the Earth goes in between the sun and the moon. It only occurs during full moons, where the moon goes behind the shadow, and you can see the curvature of the Earth on the moon's shadow. Right. The moon rotates around 28 days. So it's about every 28 days the moon rotates, so about 13 rotations a year. And during those 13 rotations, every time it goes around, it goes from full, when it's exactly opposite to the light source, to new, whenever it's exactly opposite again, but on the other side. So That's how it works.
Awesome. Reese,
not that I agree with everything Bill Nye the Science Guy does, but that's something I remember learning on Bill Nye the Science Guy. It's like a little itty bitty kid.
Well, hey, always credit where credit is due here on Real Science Radio. Yeah. And we want to thank Reese Tabor from Southwest Baptist University for saving me from a potentially embarrassing situation where I may have tried to answer that question on the air, and now I know.
I have a quick plug. So SBU is an incredible Christian university. We're very, very faith-based, and all of our faculty teach from a Christian perspective. So the science courses, because I had an astronomy class, or a class where astronomy was in there, and we looked at like the science, the math, everything that the world says, okay, this is what, millions of years, whatever. But there's also that Christian perspective. And so we brought the class back to a truth, a biblical truth. It said, here's how God explained the celestial bodies were made, and that's how God made it. And we looked at the science behind the movement of celestial bodies, the ellipses of the orbits, all those pieces together. And that's just like one piece of like one of the reasons why I love SBU so much, is because there's that really strong academic background, but equally stronger faith background. So incredible place. I found a lot of joy here and a lot of spiritual growth.
Awesome. Southwest Baptist University. How do they find you on the internet?
You can Google Southwest Baptist University. That's the easiest way to do it. We've got a lot of really good information on our website. We're in Bolivar, Missouri. We're in Dallas right now. It's about 7 hours from Dallas. We're just south of Kansas City. There are direct flights into Springfield Airport. If you're ever interested, go to the website, come set up a visit. And if you're a senior, we'll actually pay for you to come out and visit campus. So there you go.
So Doug, that was really good because, honestly, is doing a radio show all these years. I've been doing it 20 years. You've been doing it like 5.
Yeah.
And you've been watching and, you're paying attention, all that good stuff. We never really thought about that. When you mentioned it to me in my house, why did we see the shadow on the moon and see the sun at the same time?
I hadn't thought about it.
I was a little embarrassed too that I didn't really have the right answer, because everybody instinctively says, well, it's the Earth's shadow on the moon.
Right.
And it's not. So, Reese, thank you for pointing that out.
Amen.
And yeah, so, and you know what? What's kind of funny, I think he said he learned it from Bill Nye, the Science Guy.
Bill Nye, the Science Guy, comes through. He's working for Real Science Radio, too. That's
Get another guy working for
go. That's right.
Oh, speaking of that, we then had, remember we had that lady come up and was she saw the plate tectonics sign.
Oh, yeah,
so
plate
let's
tectonics.
play that interview really quick.
Hey, yeah, that was great. So you have a degree in biology, you said?
Yes, I do.
And from a Christian university, secular university?
Secular university.
And so I'm going to assume that at some point you believed in evolution to some degree?
Yes, so I was raised believing theistic evolution, and I had to take evolution courses for my degree. The only thing I never believed was human evolution. So,
yeah. Okay.
So a former theistic evolution believer, do you consider yourself a young earther now?
I do.
A young earther, and what caught your attention in our booth? We're here at the Texas Homeschool Convention with a homeschool mom, and she just stopped by, and what made you stop?
Well, I stopped just because I saw that you seem to be fairly like-minded. But what really caught my attention is after years of teaching curriculum, of teaching kids about young earth beliefs and science and the Bible, I've never really questioned plate tectonics.
Interesting.
Right. Me too.
I didn't really start questioning it until maybe the last 10 years. And, you know, when hydroplate theory came along, which is Walt Brown's theory, and then plate tectonics, I mean, everybody teaches it as gospel fact, but when you actually look into it, and Ellis Hughes wrote this book on 20 reasons to question plate tectonics, and he could have written 30 or 40 reasons, but these are the most compelling. It actually documents how plate tectonics got foisted in to the science community, just like evolution does. You try to publish anything against plate tectonics, you can't. It's just like anything in secular science.
Yeah.
You get a dogma, and people latch onto it, and then that becomes a paradigm. It covers the history of how that happened.
Okay, so I want to tell you what got my attention.
Okay.
So you have two plates.
Mm-hmm.
They're 20 to 60 miles thick of mostly granite.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we agree on that. That's the crust of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is the source and mechanism of the force that makes one plate dive under another and start subducting? What does that? And when you stop and think for a few minutes about it, it's very difficult to imagine a geologic event that could cause that to happen, and not just once, but in multiple locations across the planet. And then when you start to look at, so that alone made me think, well, that seems like it's impossible. I just don't know how that starts.
There was not enough engineering, you know, like for example, mechanical engineering that looked at that problem. And this book covers that. There's other ones that are just so compelling to me.
And then once you kind of get your head around, well, wait a minute, how did that start? What made that start? Well, you realize they don't really have an answer for how that started. It's just almost like evolution when you start to ask, well, where did the original biological creature come from? They say, don't pay attention to that. Let us tell you about how it evolved.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can I tell you what I always just kind of assumed?
Yes.
So,
sure.
Looking at it from a young earth perspective, I just assumed, okay, well, we would have started. I have no problem with thinking that God created the land all in one gathering, right?
And we believe that
the
too.
puzzle pieces of the land.
Generally.
And that then when the flood would have come, the Bible tells us that the water came up from the deep. So I believe that at that point we would have had things like volcanoes and some of our bigger mountains forming because of the volcanoes. And that would have been when land would have separated. And I guess I just assumed that as the Bible tells us, that all creation suffers under the weight of our sin, and we see it getting worse and worse, like labor pains, that it would have just been a factor of that, of having the land having separated that wasn't designed that way to begin with. And then, I mean, I don't know how to make it all work in my head, but I never questioned it because I thought it's not how it was created. It's what came about because of the global flood.
So you gave credit to the fact, you credited the fact that it was broken to, that's how plate tectonics happened. and then never really thought that much more about it.
No, I'm a
Me
busy
too.
mom. I've never really.
But you said something really key there. Did you hear? She said water. You know, so the current, I would say maybe the most popular creation paradigm right now is catastrophic plate tectonics.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't say water; they say magma. The fountains of the great magma, in a sense. But we believe it was water, subterranean water, and that's and the evidence for that we believe is just a lot more compelling. And so plate tectonics is just one part of it.
Yeah.
But we've also got, we just did a show with Kevin Lee, and so he talks about all the stuff we see in space, asteroids, comets.
Mm-hmm.
NASA reports on this stuff, and it fits the hydroplate theory perfectly.
Are you familiar with Bennu? They just took some samples from an asteroid, brought it back to Earth, and they're actually able to look at it. And they say this thing came from a water planet. It came from underwater. And that's exactly
which planet in the universe we know has water on it, lots of it.
Yeah,
right.
Lots of water.
And types of material that only come from Earth, the carbon, lots of carbon.
Serpentinites.
Yeah, which comes from the mid-oceanic ridge. There's a big crack around the globe, and we think the fountains of the great deep is water. And and a lot of it achieves escape velocity, so we think all the comets and asteroids came from Earth.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really cool stuff.
If you watch, you can go to our YouTube channel and watch the latest shows.
That's right, folks. You can sign up. You can
there you
subscribe
go.
right here. But so let me just let's finish with plate tectonics really quick.
Okay.
Because it's okay to assume that because of the fall, and we know God created the heaven and the earth, and we know that man fell, and we know that Jesus Christ came and paid for our sins.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that, it's okay to just think, okay, well, I don't understand that, and move on, because there's a lot of other interesting and important things that we need to study and learn. But if you have time and you want to stop and think about it, the one wonderful thing about being secure in your salvation is that after that, you can go and look at things like gravity and plasma and plate tectonics and hydroplate theory and all this great stuff. And so anything that requires a miracle that's not in the Bible, just stop and say, well, wait a minute. If there's not a specific miracle in the Bible that explains this, then we need to explain this via the laws of physics as they exist.
Right.
And that's what's fun about creationism, is because we've already gotten the big question out of the way. We know God did it. We know it fell. We know there was a flood.
Right.
And now there's all kinds of cool stuff that we can investigate.
Kind of a little bit more of the details.
And that's why we encourage you to buy Ellis Hughes' book, 20 Reasons to Question Plate Tectonics. And we're going to make you a super deal, a show special here at the Texas Homeschool Convention, of course. What's your name?
Terry.
Terry, thanks for coming by.
Sure.
God bless you.
Thank you so much.
So, Doug, that was interesting. We had her interested in plate tectonics. She had not heard this other point of view.
Yeah.
And so many people just take it for granted, and there's so much evidence against it. We were glad to be able to give her this book.
That's right. She got Ellis Hughes' book, 20 Reasons to Question Plate Tectonics, which she'll take home, and she'll learn that plate tectonics is a myth. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I have to apologize to the author. I'm not a very good salesperson. You can either pay what we were asking for, $10, or we'll give it to you for free. So they offered, well, I'll pay a cost. I'm like, okay, thank you, $5.
There you go. Okay.
So not a good salesman. We gave away a lot of stuff here.
We gave away a lot of stuff. That was good.
Yeah. So Doug, this has been a great homeschool conference. I did want to ask you. I wanted to get advice from a white man in skinny jeans. What do you think?
hey, at least she implied that I was skinny. I'll take that.
There you go. I didn't think of that.
It's an unintentional compliment, and I'll take it. So.
Please tune in next week for the conclusion of our Man in the Street interviews in Fort Worth and for more from the Homeschool Conference. Here's a preview of next week's show.
I have 3.
I don't need to be lectured by a white man in skinny jeans about what I can do with my body.